Welcome to Friends and Fiction. 4 New York Times bestselling authors, endless stories. Novelists Mary Kay Andrews, Kristin Harmel, Kristy Woodson Harvey, and Patti Callahan Henry are 4 longtime friends with more than 70 published books between them. Together, they host Friends and Fiction, with author interviews and fascinating insider talk about publishing and writing, to highlight and support independent bookstores. They discuss the books they've written, the books they're reading now, and the art of storytelling. If you love books and you're curious about the writing world, you're in the right place.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Friends and Fiction. I am Patti Callahan Henry.
I'm Kristy Woodson Harvey.
And this is Friends and Fiction, 4 New York Times bestselling authors, endless stories to support indie bookstores, authors, readers like you, and of course, our beloved librarians.
Yep. If you're not with us already, we hope you'll join our Facebook group, which is more than 300,000 members strong. We'd also like to invite you to follow us on Instagram and YouTube and to subscribe to our Substack newsletter, which is full of awesome bonus content. You can find out more about our community and all we have to offer at friendsandfiction.com.
On this episode, we are so thrilled to welcome author Brisa Carleton to discuss her debut novel. Kristy, debut. Remember that? So fun. We had no idea what we were in for, did we?
Yeah.
Oh, what a life. Her debut novel, Last Call at the Savoy, which was just released on November 4th. Brisa is involved in the arts in so many ways, from theater to novels to movies and even a vodka brand inspired by your favorite classics. So there is a lot to talk about as we hear her inspiration and story. So Kristy, I was lucky enough, I know you were too, to get an early read of Last Call at the Savoy. And as I got to know Brisa, I was struck by how many artistic endeavors she is involved in. From theater to creative liquor branding to philanthropy. Now she's doing hotel gatherings for branded hotel gatherings with authors. There are so many ways to be creative in the world, and writing novels is just one of them. So this is her debut novel, but you, Kristy, are also involved in so many other creative endeavors, from design chic to clothing recommendations to an incredible social media channel. And you even have a YouTube channel about your life and wisdom in writing. And after reading Sue Monk Kidd's book this week, Writing Creativity and Soul, I've been thinking about this concept of living a creative life, which you do in spades and with so much grace. With all you have going on, Kristy, how do you decide which creative endeavor to pursue each day, month, hour? How do you decide where to put your time when you have all these, let's call them buckets, like all these different buckets of such a creative life?
You know, it's so funny that you asked this because I think we were talking about this yesterday, but I just did this talk at a women's conference about designing your life. Like I kind of talking about your calendar and what you fill it with and how you kind of take control of your day. And this is something I've thought a lot about, and Will laughs. My husband laughs all the time because he's like, you take everything that you love and turn it into a job, which is so true. Like, I feel a little bit like we all do that. Like, we love to read. Let's start a podcast about reading. We love to write. Let's be authors. We love design. Let's make it into a
website. Yeah.
And so sometimes I do feel like it's really just those little pockets of like taking the time to read something that's like not for a specific purpose. That's just like, oh, this like spoke to me and I thought it looked great. Or, but I will have to tell you, I hope my mom's not watching this because she'll be like, oh my God, Kristy, another thing. But
she's going to watch it. Hi, Beth.
I never learned how to play the piano.
Right.
And I always wanted to. And so I've been kind of thinking about learning how to play the piano. And then I'm like, with what hours of the day? Like, when am I going to
minute of the day, Kristy?
Right. But I'm like, maybe one day. And my son was kind of like, I would learn how to play the piano with you. And I was like, okay, well, this could be like our little thing. But now he's been kind of like, oh, I think I want to learn to play the guitar. And I did that and I'm not very good at it. So anyway, but we'll see. Okay. But Patti, I feel like I always think of you as being just this very like creative soul, but also have turned your creativity into a lot of jobs and work and responsibility, and you have a lot of things going on. But I think we also share that love of like design and beautiful spaces. And so how do you decide what creative endeavors you're going to give your time and energy to?
It changes with the seasons, and you and I have talked so much about this, and I can't wait to hear what Brisa says. Yeah. But I think I once believed that there was some magical, mythical balance, right? That I could find if I found the right planner, because you and I have talked about planners.
We love our planners.
We love our planners and grids and list of to-dos, that I would know how to divide my time. And I've just come to see balance in that daily way as kind of a myth for productivity. And I do things in large swaths. This is my writing time. This is my touring time. This is my vacation time. This is my reading time. And it happens much more on a large swath scale. Now, there are days where I have to put aside an hour for organization, an hour for this, an hour for that. But creative endeavors, I can't parcel those out on a grid. I just can't.
When you and I say this all the time, we're like, what do people think about when they're not writers? I'm sure we've said it on the show, because it doesn't matter what we're doing. We're thinking about our books. Like, we're immersed in that world.
You and I get on the phone to talk about something, and we end up talking about plot and story. And I can't wait to ask. Yeah, exactly. Or how the middle is saggy. I can't wait to ask Brisa too, because it is true. We both say, what do other people? I had a 6-hour drive the other day, and I thought about this plot twist for at least 4 of those. And I did think, what do other people think about? All right, let's talk about Brisa before we bring her on. So Brisa grew up in the Pacific Northwest before moving to Midtown Manhattan to turn her passion for musicals and flair for the dramatic into an award-winning career as a Broadway producer. 3 Tony Awards later, she continues to be active on Broadway, working on productions you might have heard of, like Hamilton, Beautiful, and Moulin Rouge.
In 2019, at the request of Prince Albert of Monaco, Brisa joined his foundation to lead philanthropy efforts in theater, dance, and film on behalf of his mother, Princess Grace Kelly. I mean, it's just ordinary, right?
I got asked, but I was too busy.
Who hasn't done that?
I was busy.
Most recently, Brisa turned her entrepreneurial spirit into actual spirits, launching Literati Spirits, a premium vodka created by book lovers for book lovers.
She enjoys traveling to literary destinations with a martini in one hand and a manuscript in the other. She's collecting stories with her husband, Mark, and her chihuahua, Mr. Big,
who I got to meet backstage. I don't want to brag. Brisa's debut novel, Last Call at the Savoy, was just released on November 4th, and it is set amongst the glittering backdrop of London's iconic Savoy Hotel, where a young woman is forced to confront her troubled past as she uncovers the story of the hotel's first female bartender, who has been erased from history.
Sean, can you bring Brisa on so we can talk to her instead of about her? Hi, my friends.
Hi. So good to see you both.
Welcome to Friends in Fiction.
Thank you.
Okay. Before we dive into this beautiful book, I want to talk about you. You, Brisa Carleton, about who you are and how you came to have your debut novel out in the world right now. Because like me, you did not plan on this. Or Kristy. I had a degree in nursing, and Kristy was in finance, but I think writing in many ways found us more than we found it. So let's talk about the first moment you thought, I think I'm going to write a book.
Well, I have always been a reader. I'm an avid reader and have been since I was a little kid. And my career has been in theater producing. And so I've always been in storytelling, but I was always very clear. Like, I'm on the producing side, I'm on the business side. Like, I am not the creative person. And I don't know why, for some reason in my head, like that was a rule. Like, I'm on this
You
side
put
of the
like a wall between them.
Yeah. Even though like in high school and everything, I would perform and all that, but I was just like, no, that's not my strength. I am going to be on the business side. But then 2 years ago now, maybe a little longer, it was coming into the holidays. And as Kristy mentioned, I was working in this incredible job for the Prince of Monaco and traveling back and forth to the south of France and all over the world talking about Princess Grace. And I was just really stressed, and there were so many stakeholders and so much going on. And I thought, I just need something that I can just do for me. And so I found an online writing course called The Novelry, and they were doing a 90-day novel sprint. And I thought, great, I'll just do this. Like, no expectation, nothing. I just need something where I can control everybody involved, which are all these characters in my head. And the course also is just really approachable. It wasn't like, oh, you need an MFA and all these things that would have been too much for me at the time. It was like, I can just log on for an hour a day and escape into my imagination. And I loved it. And at the end of the course, they're like, if you want to send us your stuff, we'll let you know if it's something maybe you should pursue. And they, out of nowhere, were like, actually, this is good. Like, here are a gazillion edits, but like, if you really want to pursue this, you should give it a try. And it was really then, not when I had the finished manuscript, but when they, showed a little bit of enthusiasm for it, that I thought, oh, like maybe I should try this.
Oh, Brisa, that's amazing.
But I will say, I'm glad now that I hadn't done a lot of research into how to become a writer and how to get published and all of that, because I think I would have been so intimidated. I would have just been like, oh, the odds of this are so low. But going in sort of ignorance is bliss, I was like, sure, why not?
I love that. Well, and we've talked about, I think on the show before, but I know we've talked about it personally, like that moment of being able to say like, I'm a writer, and how sometimes it doesn't come until much later. I mean, I like had a novel out and things and was like, oh, people would be like, what do you do? And I'm like it took a long time for me to be like, oh, I'm an author, or it's a weird thing. And, I love that story because it's always so fun to be on here and figure out like how people came to writing, because it's always a little bit different.
Yeah, I definitely can't say it that I'm a writer with a straight face yet. I just can't.
Right. Like,
yes,
it takes a minute, right?
You actually can. Yes, you can.
It's weird though, right? Like, why?
See, you like cover your face. I know.
Okay, so you get that. That's funny. All right, well, let's talk about this beautiful novel that has made you a writer. You were a writer before, but now you're going to be a published author. So Last Call at the Savoy is a dual timeline novel set amongst the glittering backdrop of London's iconic Savoy Hotel. A young woman is forced to confront her troubled past as she uncovers the story of the hotel's first female bartender, which has been erased from the history books. So if that's a little about what this novel is about, what is it really about?
It's, if I had to sum it up into one thing, it's a novel about sisterhood, and sisterhood really in both the literal sisters, and that the main character and her sister are who we follow through the story, but also about the more metaphoric sisterhood of women, past, present, and future, and how Cinnamon, our main character, is really inspired by this real life woman from the past that she learns about. And so I don't have a sister, but it was really wonderful to explore this concept of sisterhood in all kinds of different ways.
Well, you are officially now part of the Friends in Fiction sisterhood.
Yes.
So welcome.
Very exclusive sisterhood. So welcome.
Yeah. We'll show you the secret handshake later.
Yeah.
All right. So the minute I heard about this book, for everyone out there, Brisa and I are what we call agent sisters. We share an agency, a literary agency, not the same agent, but the same agency. And the minute I heard about this book, I knew I had to read it because it takes place in my very favorite hotel in London and my very favorite bar to boot. When they give me a drink in the American bar in that little coupe glass, I'm like, thank you very much. I feel so sophisticated. But what was the very first inspiration for this book? Can you even pinpoint where it was born?
Oh, I mean, I can very specifically pinpoint where it was born because it was born in that very bar, the American bar at the Savoy. I've always loved the Savoy. And part of why I love it is because it actually was founded to support the Savoy Theater that it's attached to. And the theater actually came first. And the hotel was built by the theater producers because they were doing all the big Gilbert and Sullivan operettas, the precursor to musical theater, which is my obsession. And I loved that they were like, oh, we need to, like, people are coming in to see these shows. They need a place to stay. And London at the time in the 1880s and 90s didn't have any luxury hotels because nobody was going to London on vacation. It was rainy and dark and, you'd go to France or something. And so they built the hotel and wanted it to be, and the people were very skeptical about, and then this is not what the book's about, but we do get into that about whether a luxury hotel could work. And so one of the things that these theater producers did is they programmed the hotel to almost be like a show. And so one of those things was they hired this female bartender who was extremely charismatic and witty and snarky and like could do all this incredible mixology. And so, and that's all true. But so fast forward to, I always stay at the Savoy. I'm sitting at that bar with my little coupe glass, feeling very
they're so beautiful. I know.
And I'm just sort of paging through the menu, and there's a little footnote about a drink called the Hanky Panky that was invented by this woman, Ada Coleman. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And I'm sort of talking to the bartender about it. And I find out she was working there in the early 1900s when women weren't even allowed in the bar. And I'm like, wow, how crazy. Like, this is fascinating. I love learning about women in history that I'm not familiar with. So especially who are bartenders, like, this sounds good.
Yeah.
I looked her up and there's almost nothing about her. And I was like, how can this be? And so I'm not a historian, but it stuck with me. And this was actually years before I started writing, but just the idea of who was this woman stuck with me. And so then when it came time to what should I write a novel about, I thought I'll write about somebody who, like me, discovers this little footnote of a story and tries to tease out who this woman really had been.
That's so cool. So tell us about, how did you even begin the process of doing that historical research? Aside from visiting London and having martinis in the American bar, which was obviously a very important part of your research.
I did lots of that research, lots.
We suffer for our art. But how did you even begin?
So I started by just Googling Ada Coleman, and that took about 5 minutes because there's about 5 minutes worth of material. Currently, I'm hoping, one of my secret goals with the book is that maybe somebody will read about her and be interested in, actually writing her history. That would be amazing. Mm-hmm. But then I went to the Savoy. They actually employ a full-time archivist, which is amazing and a real testament to how seriously they take their history. Yeah. And so she had a little bit more information, but she also was like, yeah, there's not a lot and there should be. And so I ended up having to, there's a lot written about the Savoy in history books and things. And so I read those, and a lot of people ask me like, okay, well, there was nothing written about her. Like, then what are the stories that you put in about her? And they were me saying, we know what happened for the 25 years she was there. We know all the famous people that were at the hotel. We know all the iconic things, everything that happened during that time. So it's not that hard to connect the dots to say, we know she was there every night. Yeah. So she probably met these people and she probably was involved in all these things.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Well, Patti, I've only done it once. I normally write more contemporary things, but Patti and I have discussed before, and she's done it more than I have, writing about these real people and how you piece their lives together. And I remember calling her, this is so funny. It was like the middle of the pandemic, I guess. And my book, The Wedding Veil, that was about Edith and Cornelia Vanderbilt, was about to come out. And I was watching Hamilton on Disney Plus. Sorry, it's like a long story. I'm setting the scene for you. But that song in Hamilton, and it's like, who lives, who dies, who tells your story. And I just had
Brisa knows.
And I got, Brisa knows that song. And Patti calls, I call Patti and I'm like, oh my, who am I to be telling these women's stories? Like, who do I think I am to like be the person? Did you ever have that moment of like, sort of, I don't not even necessarily panic, but almost like overwhelm of like the privilege of being able to get to tell someone's life story.
Completely. But for me, it was like, I was so driven to tell Ada's story because I was just like, this is such a cool person and she needs to be remembered. So like, I was really driven. Like I was like on a mission to make that happen. But actually, I mean, Hamilton played a big part in how I thought about telling her story. And I'm fortunate that I got to be involved. I know Lin-Manuel Miranda. So we've actually talked about how you make decisions around creative license, which is interesting because, I mean, if you read the Ron Chernow book about Hamilton, I mean, Lin took a lot of creative license, but people would love Hamilton and learn more than they would have about those characters. And then some people will go back and read the history. So like it all works beautifully together. But
I literally did not even know that. So I'm super glad that I brought up that story. That was just
Brisa knows that song.
That was like a Spidey sense over here or something, because that was not even my actual follow-up question.
But no, Hamilton was a big part of it. And then the other part of it is in the book, the flashback vignettes about Ada always happen when Cinnamon is sitting at the bar having a drink. And I did that on purpose too, because I love the concept of like barroom lore and those stories that get passed down from the bartenders to, and they may not be exactly how it went, but it's just, it's lore. And so I liked the idea of telling Ada's story in that way, because we don't know and we never will know exactly what those conversations were. But it was a way to sort of give myself permission to tell them the way you would tell somebody if you were sitting across from them after a couple drinks. Like, did you hear about this?
Yeah, that's very cool.
Also, it honors her. Like we try to find these places where fact and fiction, there's these gaps, right? And as long as we're honoring them, because, like Kristy, and we've talked about it a lot, is if it's a real person and you're not sure, how do you wiggle around it? And my answer is always if I'm honoring them. So, all right. In the novel, this cocktail world you were just describing and sitting at that bar at the Savoy, I wish we were having this conversation there.
And we should have traveled for this show.
I know this should have been a travel. It should have been a destination show.
Yeah.
I like that idea. Let's go.
But the hotel bar seems to be a metaphor for reinvention, legacy, almost a portal to another time. If you could pick a favorite cocktail from the novel, what would it be and what would that mean for you and Cinnamon?
Oh, I mean, it obviously has to be the Hanky Panky because that is Ada's favorite drink. And I happen to love it. It's gin, Fernet Branca, and a little bit of bitters and an orange twist. And I'm usually a vodka person, but actually it's fantastic. And what I like about cocktail bars, and it's proven true all throughout my career and other things, is it's like this great equalizer. Like all kinds of people come to sit at a cocktail bar, and they can be celebrities or, nobodies.
Yeah.
And they all sit shoulder to shoulder and enjoy the same cocktails. And frequently we'll get to talking to each other. And a good bartender is good at getting the people at the bar to engage and to feel immediately like part of a community. And so for me, setting this at the bar was a reflection of how I feel about how that works. And that Cinnamon can be sitting there by herself, which I travel a ton for work, and I sit by myself at bars and inevitably either meet somebody fascinating or just overhear a conversation that inspires me for a future book or, any of those things. And there aren't that many places that you can just by yourself go and immediately be part of wherever you are.
I love that. I'm always scared to sit by myself at a bar.
Oh, do it. It's great. Bring a book, put it in front of you, and
everybody seems to be looking at their phones, but you're right. A good bar like the American bar at the Savoy, that would be what would happen.
Yeah.
Now, I saw you recently and you had made a pamphlet of other notable female mixologists and bartenders. Tell us a little bit about that.
Something that was important to me in telling Ada's story was also showing how her legacy as a female mixologist has carried through. And it's still the case in mixology circles that it's still a pretty male-dominated industry. And so I reached out to a couple female mixologists that I found on Instagram or had heard of, and just said, would you be interested in contributing a recipe and a little bit of your story so that I can make this companion booklet of talking about who they are. And of course, they all know who Ada Coleman is, because she's like
the icon. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And so I was very happy. Everyone was happy to participate in that. And so I now can add those cocktail recipes and those cocktails that all had amazing stories of how they came about to Ada's story. So like in our reader's guides and book club kits and all of that, it's not just all the cocktails in the book, but then these cocktails that were inspired by Ada's legacy.
I love that.
That is so cool. Yeah. So cool.
Okay, so we have to talk about Cinnamon too. So she's in the modern day storyline. She's inherited a literal fortune and just kind of can't seem to get her life together. So she's mourning her parents and she just feels really stuck until her sister calls her to London. This relationship between Cinnamon and Rosie is really central. So what made you choose a sibling relationship as kind of the hinge of the story?
Well, first of all, you talk about that she inherited all that money. I wanted to show with that when you have something terrible happen, like she didn't have like the constraints that most of us have of like, well, we still need to show up and go to work and we still need to like live our lives. Mm-hmm. But that because this happened when she was in her 20s and her parents had sold their bakery, which is why she's named Cinnamon and her sister's named Rosemary. And that it sort of left her in this position where she didn't have anything she really needed to be doing. And so as a result, she really spiraled. But then I wanted the sister relationship was to show her sister, who went through the same thing, but was a couple years older, handled it in a much more mature way and sort of became the mother figure. And then what happens throughout the book is Cinnamon is immature and childish and the sister has it all together. But as a sister is heading into having twins and all of the fears and unknown of motherhood, and that their roles start to switch. And Cinnamon realizes that she needs to step up and be there for her sister, who's going through something that's very scary. And I think it's the first time that Cinnamon is like, oh, I actually like need to step up and get my life together.
I love that.
It's fun to watch her do it too.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Now I'm dying to talk about Broadway for a minute. So you've been involved, as we mentioned earlier, in a few Broadway productions as a producer, just some we might have heard of, like Hamilton and Moulin Rouge. You are such a go-getter, my friend. You see something you want and you find a way. So tell us about following your dream to producing, because you were living in the Pacific Northwest and you came to New York. Tell us about how you made this happen and how you think it influenced your writing.
Well, I was running a community theater outside of Portland, Oregon, in a little town. And so, of course, I was like, I should come to Broadway because how different can it be? I mean, it's got to be exactly the same thing.
Same thing, just a tiny bit bigger.
Yeah, just like the writing, like ignorance is bliss. I clearly am, not the most intelligent person because I just jump into these things thinking, how hard can it be?
Tell Kristy what the title of your memoir will be.
The one martini method?
No, Ready, Fire, Aim.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Ready, Fire, Aim.
Go ahead.
Been how I go through life, and somehow it's worked out.
Great.
But yeah, so I moved to New York cold. I didn't know anybody. I mentioned martinis because I found out through a friend of a friend that all the producers would go to Sardi's, the iconic theater bar. Yeah, and I knew they used to do that. I didn't know they still did. And so I started showing up there like 2 hours before the show on weeknights, which is when they're all there drinking and gossiping and doing their thing, and just started like listening and like pretending like I belonged, even though I absolutely did not and had no idea what I was doing. And at one point, the bartender, like you see the thread here, like the bartenders have been really important in my life, said, finally realized I wasn't a tourist. I kept showing up and was like, what are you doing here? And I said, I want to be a producer. And he laughed. But he said, well, you're in the right place. And he pulled out a cocktail napkin and wrote like drew a map of all the different bar stools and tables. And by this point I had obviously noticed like a lot of the same people, a lot of regulars, and he explained who everybody was, and then like called one of the guys over, because it was mostly guys, and said, this is Brisa. She wants to be a producer. We chatted, he gave me some advice. And then the next night I came back, met the next person. And after a couple months of this, I went from being totally nobody to, oh, that's Brisa. She knows everybody. And shortly after that, I got invited to co-produce on my first show.
That's so great.
Isn't that the greatest story? I just love that. Yeah. And once again, ode to the bar, you have a vodka literary brand. So tell us about Literati Spirits.
Well, Literati is because you guys were talking earlier while I was backstage about Kristy turning everything that she likes into a business. And I very much have that same problem. And so, yeah, I love cocktails and I love books. And so I had this idea to create a book themed vodka company. And I figured, best case, it does great and we sell tons of vodka. Worst case, I end up with 30,000 bottles of vodka in my apartment. Yeah. So not really a downside. And I'd say at the moment it's somewhere in between. We're selling some and we're drinking a lot of it.
That's so cool. It's beautiful too. I really love that. Okay. Well, so this is like the perfect segue because, what Patti asked me at the front of show, with so many creative ideas brewing, how do you decide where you give your attention at that moment? And are you kind of planning your life day by day, or are you more seasonal?
I had a vision for what I wanted to do, and I wanted to be a theater producer, and I moved here to do that, but was very fortunate to do that. I mean, work my butt off, but to actually get to do that and get to be part of some of these amazing shows. And there was something really freeing about having achieved like my biggest bucket list goal and being like, okay, I've done that. And coming away from that knowing like not only did I pull it off, like, so maybe who knows what else I should try, but also like I didn't have to chase that anymore. And it's given me this freedom to say, why don't I try this? Why don't I try that? And I mean, certainly on the producing side also, like Hamilton also gave me the financial freedom to be able to do something a little more creative. Like I should say that like it's not an easy thing to move to New York and live here. But that made it a lot easier.
Yeah.
And so it's been fun to get to pursue these different things just because I'm excited about them.
I always say that once we're curious about something, we don't just think about being curious. We go after it, whether it's decorating, designing, producing, writing a book, writing a play, writing a movie, right? You just, once you're curious, it's no holds barred, man. Watch out.
Yeah. Well, and I get things done. Like that's the thing. Is like if I have an idea, not only do I start on it, but I tend to finish it.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's a memoir.
But I give people that advice a lot because I think that people envision writers and certainly theater people too, as this kind of like ethereal. And I think there is a little bit of that, but I think the people that tend to make a career of it, like we're pretty type A when you get down to it. Like we start, we finish, we hit the deadline and we do it again. And and it's kind of like, well, the muse has not visited me today, but guess what? Like, they send me that check and it's got to get done.
Yeah. Or I need that check and I'm going to finish it.
You need the check and you got to get it done.
So
I do feel like there is some kind of marriage between like the ethereal and creative and the like,
hardcore work.
Yeah. Well, and that's been one of the most wonderful things about my very new baby journey into writing is getting to meet other authors whose books I've read and loved. And, I've known you guys, I know you've known your names forever. You're on my bookshelves. Like, it's so cool. But then also to feel like, oh, these are people that are very similar to me. And like you are all business people and getting, running these companies that are yourselves and your brands. And that's so fun because like I said before, I had stayed away from being on the creative side because I was like, no, I'm a business person. And it seems like being an author allows you to be both, like requires you to be both.
To be both.
Yeah.
It does.
Totally
it does.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, Brisa, we talk about how books we read change us, but I believe the books we write also shift something in us. What in Last Call at the Savoy changed anything in you?
I mean, certainly having to sit and write and come up with these stories in my imagination allowed me to hear myself better and listen to myself and be able to sit there alone. And I would forget, I sound like I'm schizophrenic or something. I would forget that I was alone because I mean, I would hear them talk, like I couldn't type fast enough because they're talking to me in my head. And that has really helped and allowing myself to say, okay, like these passing thoughts that are actually something valid and maybe interesting. And the funny things that I think and don't say, I can put them on the page and have said. And so I would say that, and it really has changed my relationship with my own imagination.
I say I think from listening to you, I feel like it broke down your wall between I'm only on the business side to I am also, right? So I used to be a nurse and I used to say, I'm more science than.
Yeah, exactly.
We are both and. All of us are both and. There is no either or.
I love that.
So, all right, Brisa, we have more to talk about, but we have to do a couple announcements. So for all of you out there watching and listening, we encourage you right this minute to rush out and buy your copies of Last Call at the Savoy. And why wouldn't you after hearing all about it? And the perfect place to do that is the Friends and Fiction shop on bookshop.org. You not only get the book at a discount, but all of your purchases support Brisa, our show, and indie bookstores nationwide, which is why we started this show all the way back in 2020.
And don't forget to visit friendsandfiction.com for details on our show schedule, upcoming in-person events, and links to our merch store, our Substack newsletter sign up, and the award-winning Friends and Fiction official book club with Brenda and Lisa. Mark your calendars for Monday, November 17th, when they will host Alicia Fernandez Miranda at 7 p.m. Eastern to discuss her new novel, Someone's Gotta Give.
And speaking of our Substack, which is one of my favorite subjects, this is actually our newsletter. Substack is just this really fancy way of saying our newsletter. But you can find it on the Substack website, or you can get it in your inbox. And if you upgrade to the paid, which is just $5 a month, you have access to deeper dives with all of our show guests, like Brisa. There's a special interview with her, plus occasional roundtable discussions like the recent one Meg did on debut novels and crime fiction, and in-depth interviews like the Q&A Kristin just did with actress and children's book author Aria Mia Liberto, and the tribute I just wrote to Sue Monk Kidd. So if you enjoy tuning in for our weekly author interviews, this is a huge way that you can support us for about $1 a week, which is less than that Starbucks cup of coffee that you got. So, okay, Brisa, back to you. So I want
You're reminding me that I need to write my latest Substack. I started one as an author and I'm still not in.
That's awesome. We were just reminding about to ask you about that.
That I was out of coffee and I need some.
Cheers to all day coffee. Okay, Brisa, back to you. If you look back at your reading, you said you were a huge reader as a child. If you look back at your reading history, what books do you think most influenced your writing and even your choices of musicals that you back and support?
My favorite book when I was a kid, and it was one of the first like big books that I read, was Mists of Avalon. And I definitely think that influenced how I thought about this book for sure, because Mists of Avalon takes a very familiar, the Arthurian legend tale, and flips it to tell it from a women's point of view and really teases out some of these women that hadn't had major roles in the other tellings of that legend, but that were hugely influential in that story. And so I've probably read that book 100 times, and it just never gets old. And I find new things at every phase of my life that I read it. So I would say that one for sure. Do you want me to go get the dog and make him stop?
Nope. No, we're a very dog-friendly show.
We're a dog-friendly show.
We're live, so it just is what it is. All right. So Brisa, where can we catch up with you on the road? And will you let our community know how to connect with you online too?
Yes, I'm on Instagram. It's the only social media I'm consistent with. So you can find me there at Brisa Carleton, BrisACarleton. And then I have this new Substack.
That's
and
awesome.
It's called Delightful, Delicious, Delovely, with a little nod to Porter Shoot. I talk about my writing, but I also have recommendations whenever I put it out. That's
what I'm saying. Forget the grid. When I want to write one, I'll write it.
Yep.
And then, yes, I'm going on a tour. There are new stops being added all the time. But after after New York, Denver, Colorado on November 7th, Palm Desert, Barnes and Noble with Julia Whalen on the 8th. We'll both be signing. I'll be at Zibby's Bookshop on November 9th. And then I will be at Books on 3rd on November 22nd, which is a brand new bookstore in Old Naples. And it's adorable. It just opened like a week and a half ago. And so
and all of that's on your website, Brisa Carleton. And also we can find the Literati vodka there too.
Yes. Ooh. And I'm also just starting to get invites to come Zoom into people's book clubs, which is making me so happy. Like I am beyond thrilled to be doing that. And I'm bringing my real martini to the virtual conversations.
That's awesome.
So is that something you're open to? Because I can tell you that we will have a lot of people listening that will want you to come talk to them.
Absolutely love to. I would be thrilled. I'd be honored for them to pick the book, and I would be more than delighted to come and talk to readers.
Wonderful.
Brisa, you're amazing. Thank you for joining us. I knew it was going to be so fun, and it was such a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you for being on the Friends and Fiction Show.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you both.
Thanks, Be sure to tune in next week when Mary Kay and Kristin will welcome Lee and Andrew Child to discuss their new Jack Reacher novel, Exit Strategy. That show will air on the Friends and Fiction Facebook page and YouTube channel on Wednesday, November 19th at 7 p.m. Eastern. And it will be published to our podcast for your listening pleasure on Friday, November 21st.
Thanks to all of you for being here with us, and we will see you next time. Good night, y'all.
Thank you for tuning in. You can join us every week on Facebook or YouTube, where our live show airs on Wednesday nights at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Also, subscribe to our podcast and follow us on Instagram. We're so glad you're here.